often, I guess a community may be defined by what's outside it rather than its internal structure. So, I mean, a common threat or a common...
there are communities based on people that don't belong in any other community.
Sorry, say that again?
Communities of outsiders.
Communities of outside, yeah, so like they're almost defined by the fact that nobody else likes them.
Yeah.
Like Millwall fans.
And they have their own set of standards that makes them like the standard rule for them is what's known for them is not known for other communities.
I was thinking about countries in particular that often gain a sense of national identity through a belief or some kind of hatred or whatever about another place.
You know what communities have rituals. It's an anthropological thing. They have rituals that perpetuate a sense of community. It's like sharing. A community must share experiences to feel like a community.
Shared experience.
The religious communities, national communities have football as a ritual to enhance the sense of identity.
Yeah, so it's shared mythology.
Yeah. Also, yeah, it's like because a community of Rolling Stones fans, they have their mythology with the myths are the source of Rolling Stones and the characters are the ones that they got and stuff like that. And the ritual would be like listening and going to Rolling Stones concerts, and people can belong to different communities, right?
Yeah.
So it's not
You don't have to
not
be
geographically.
Yeah, that's
they
the
can
main
be
difference.
geographically defined, but they don't have to be.
Yeah.
What makes a geographically defined community, if it makes sense? So, which I think you've kind of touched on already, which I think is really interesting, is what makes someone feel that they belong to a geographical community.
Well, probably, I mean, if I can talk about an area like Birmingham, it's probably the services that they use, the places that they inhabit, so things that you have to share. So, for example, you might not feel a sense of community about living in a particular block until the people that come to pick up the dustbins fail to do so over a number of weeks, for example. That's likely to bring people closer together because they have a shared interest in that area and that specific location that they have to do something about. So they have to, it's those kind of moments and those kind of things that bring people together. I mean, London always had this. I mean, London's a tremendously non-community place in so many ways, if I can put it like that. But one thing that's always the mythology of London is that everybody during the Blitz came together because they all got bombed by the Germans together. So, but it's that sense of your location actually having an impact on you and you having to share that effect that tends to have bring a community together, I think.
That sounds like something that a common purpose, which actually Alex mentioned around this community around this table, but we didn't have listed before, which is interesting. And the other thing with Blitz is a common threat. It seems to me that threats are really important in that, in kind of kicking against the pricks. And it's often said that one of the reasons the American blogosphere was so much healthier than the British blogosphere is because they had this common enemy of George Bush, for example, or the kind of bland press that wasn't necessarily tackling the whole reason behind the Iraq War and things like that. And it seems to me in Birmingham, for example, BCC DIY was around a common purpose, but also that common threat of what's being done to our reputation as Brummies kind of thing. We're supposed to be digitally switched on, we're really pioneering, and we've got this website that's kind of by our name, which is the Birmingham Council website. And it does seem that kind of, in the absence of that, and this may be why national identity has kind of become diffuse, because that military threat from outside, even if you talk about Iraq and Afghanistan, that's very remote. So that identity then starts to boil down to more local identities, which is, well, nationally we're okay, but locally London gets all the money and we don't, kind of thing, so it becomes more local. And I was reading an interesting research paper into globalisation or journalistic ethics. And this word globalisation was about the idea that people talk about globalisation, and this study looked at South Africa and India and the news industry in those countries, which had grown enormously, and there was a lot of international presence in those countries. And the typical view was that led to this globalisation. So, for example, the equivalent of the PCC in South Africa is based on the PCC in Britain and America. And when they make judgments in South Africa, they look for kind of similar cases in America and the UK to guide their decisions. So they're kind of taking on the values of the UK and America. But what they found was, when that kind of globalisation happens, you get an equal reaction back, this kind of local pressure. So at the same time as you've got these big organisations buying up, so independent media, for example, which owns The Independent, O'Reilly, they bought up a lot of, or invested in a lot of news organisations in South Africa when apartheid ended. And but at the same time, there was a lot of money going into local media projects, so local radio, communities that previously didn't have a voice. So in effect, that common threat of globalisation created community and created community media. Okay, so what about your experiences of when a community starts up or when a community dies? What has instigated both of those?
If it started off in a reaction to something, to an event, when that event becomes resolved or finishes and the community kind of dies away, so the reason that it's there, if the reason that it formed then stops existing, then the community itself doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
When the sense of identification in something will make a community start to.
So say that again. So your sense of identification stops. So
the community dies.
So you don't feel that you identify with that community at that point. What stops you
Because my
feeling?
interest is over, and maybe even my connection with people will be over.
So because you're not meeting the people, or because of the nature? Is it because you're not meeting the people that community dies?
It's the communication part, like you know, said. So community is based on two basic principles: sharing and communication. Right? People share lots of stuff, even if it's a common hatred, which there are many communities like that. And if the object or the value or the interest they share disappears, and they won't have nothing to talk about. So communication dies.
Yeah.
So if communication dies, or the value they share, or the thing they share disappears, communities disappear too. It's because there's no justification for them to exist.
Sorry, you go.
I think it's also about change. I mean, if the community starts for some certain reason, but and the reason still exists, but there's no change in the environment, then there's no point to going on. I mean, if you start a community against a political party, and at first everybody is so enthusiastic and let's just throw them all to the garbage, but at some point nothing changes. They can change anything.
Communities die
Parties
out as
still
well.
there.
Yeah, because it's organic. It needs to evolve.
But they die out
It needs to
physically.
change.